Today I'm going to show you how to DIY a 3D pop-up tunnel card. These easy, fun-filled card ideas I'm going to share with you today are great even for a beginner. I hope you'll follow along with this very easy tutorial. Hi, I'm Lisa Curcio, and I would love to welcome you here to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Don't forget to grab the free project sheet. It's linked down in the video description for you below, and it's going to contain pictures, cutting dimensions, and the supplies for all three cards I'm going to share with you today, one of which I'm going to demonstrate. All right, I think we're ready. Let's get started on today's project. The base of our card is going to be using garden green cardstock. As I said, make sure you stick around so that you can see the other samples I'm going to share with you. This measures 5.5 by 8.5. I'm going to do the typical score line at 4 1/4. I'm going to be using my paper trimmer. It includes both the scoring and a cutting blade. They can stay on the clear track at the exact same time. Love that ledge for keeping things straight. I'm going to fold that card base up, and I'm going to use that bone folder to reinforce that score line. This is going to be the inside tunnel piece. This measures 5 3/8 by 8 3/8. And we're going to do several simple score lines. The first one is going to be at 2 1/8 of an inch. And the second one is going to be at 4 1/4. The 2 1/8 inch score line is here. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see on the video. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it to make it easy for my hand. And I'm going to fold in on that score line. That's called a valley fold. Turning it back again, this is the center score line. We are in essence making a gatefold from this piece here. The easiest way to do this is to fold this end in. If you score at 2 1/8 of an inch again, you're going to find that it's not going to be equal on both sides. Now that that's been scored, you've got your typical gatefold, but you'll remember that we have that crease in the center. This is going to come to a peak, which means a mountain fold. And we're going to fold that back on top of itself and just go over that score line. Now, when you're all finished, this is going to kind of sandwich up like an accordion so that it's going to expand and contract. That's what's going to create the pop-up mechanism. We're going to flatten this out for the next step. We're going to need an opening or an aperture, as they call it, for the inside of the actual tunnel. And you can use any shape that you'd like. I'm going to be using the square, the largest one here from the Stylish Shapes dies. This is probably one of my very favorite die sets because of the trending stitching and of course the graduating sizes. We're going to need to die cut that aperture or opening in the center. So all I'm doing here is I'm looking visually here at the top and here at the bottom to see if they're about equal. And I want to make sure that my die is centered on the score line that is here. Once I'm happy with it, you're going to want to make sure you tack that down so it doesn't shift going through your die cutting machine. My favorite is the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape. I love that I can rip off a piece and I can reuse this multiple times. So once again, I'm just going to make sure that I've got it exactly where I want it. And then when I'm happy with the placement, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tack the tape over the die onto the cardstock. Let's go ahead and let's pass this through the die cutting machine. Now that I've passed this through my die cutting machine, I always like to flip it over and make sure that it's die cut all the way through. Just in case it hasn't, it's secured in place, which means I can easily go ahead and pass it through again. I'm going to carefully remove the die and the tape, and like I said, you can use this again. You'll find this product linked for you on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites. It's a bunch of products that I absolutely love using here in the studio that aid me with my paper crafting that are not sold by Stampin' Up! I have a piece of basic white cardstock here. This measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. What I like to do is turn the tunnel piece upside down, and I'm going to center the basic white cardstock on the back. Now you can use that Post-it labeling and cover-up tape once again if you'd like, but I'm just going to securely hold it, and I'm going to flip it back over. I'm going to lightly draw or trace inside the opening of the aperture. You can see here now that we've got a perimeter in which we're going to decorate. Normally, I would do all my stamping and coloring now, but in this case, I'm going to be using some laser cut colored pieces from some designer series paper. So all the work is already done for me. So I'm going to bring back in my paper trimmer. I'm going to center the cardstock here at 2 1/2 inches across the top, making sure it's nice and straight across the ledge. And all we're going to do is we're going to score down the center of the paper. I am going to create a valley fold here. I'm going to make sure my ends are even, and I'm going to go over it with the bone folder. That score line is very important so that I know where to put my elements. I'm going to be using the laser cut pieces from the Christmas Tags and More. In addition to amazing 6x6 double-sided designer series paper, it includes these beautiful laser cut pieces. Now I keep all of them loose inside a little cellophane bag right inside with my designer series paper. I love this because the work is all done for you and the color coordination is fabulous. So I've pulled out some pieces ahead of time. I'm going to be using my Take Your Pick tool to help me pick up the pieces that I've pre-selected. And I'm going to lay them within this half area here just to get an idea for placement. So I'll place one of those here, and I've got another ornament that I'm going to place a little bit lower here. I also have a bow that's from that exact same package. I'm going to be using my reversible tweezers to extend my reach, and then I'll be adding a little bit of liquid glue right here in the center. This now will get attached here to the top of the ornament. Now, whether or not you want to stamp a sentiment in here or not is entirely up to you. You can see that there's a small amount of space here between the crease. Because I want to make sure I allocate room for it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp that now. I'm going to be using the garden green ink, which coordinates with some of the colors in the designer series paper, and I've already pulled out my greeting. This greeting is coming from Wishing You Joy, and I have absolutely loved this because how many times have you gone for a stamp and you've loved it, but it doesn't fit in an appropriate area? And here you go. You've got multiple sentiments in various sizes, which means you're going to be able to get a lot of use out of this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink up the stamp, and I'm going to stamp that here near the top. I want to make sure that I'm staying within the perimeter of that trace line. Laying out your pieces before you start sticking them down is very, very important. So I'm going to give you another tip that I have found quite useful. Once you determine the height of each of your elements, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to make a little dot on where I'm going to want to place them. So I'm placing one there, and this one can even go a little bit lower if you'd like, and I'm placing another one here. Now I'll move those, and I know that the dots are going to be difficult to see, and that's for good reason. I don't want my ornaments floating, so I want to create a little bit of an illusion of a string or a hanger for those ornaments. I'm going to bring out a black marker. You want something with a fine tip. I'm going to be using a ruler for this. I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to start my line here just to the top of that area that I've traced down to here. I'm going to pick up the ruler and I'm going to move it now to this side. This time I'm going to go from the dot up, and I'm going to stop at the greeting, and I'm going to come here from the trace line down and stop so I don't go all the way through the greeting. Don't worry if the bottom of your line is not even, and if you don't like making a straight line, make this a squiggly line. Squiggly line is very, very forgiving. I'm going to use those reversible tweezers once again. I'm using my precision glue press to add a little bit of thin glue here to the back, and I'm going to center this ornament where I wanted it. We'll take the next ornament and we're going to use the precision glue press again. You'll find this in my craft room favorites for you as well. And I'll center and adhere this ornament to the right side. Once your ink and your marker is all dry, you're going to go ahead and you're going to erase it. Now, obviously the pencil eraser would work great, but for such a large area, I love to use this one. This is just a pure eraser that is exactly the same eraser in my favorite craft room pencil. Again, linked for you on my website. Once the pencil marks have been erased, let's go ahead, let's come here to the card base. We're going to open this up and we're going to flatten it out. We're going to adhere this very strategically. The center crease line of this basic white cardstock is going to fall and measure up with the center crease line of the card base. You want to make sure that you don't place adhesive over the crease, otherwise the card's not going to give. So just to give you a visual idea, this is going to get centered here. So you're going to see a little bit of the crease here and a little bit here. I'm going to flip this upside down, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue near the outside edges. Again, I'm avoiding the crease, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. I'm lining up the crease of the basic white cardstock to the crease on the card base, just making sure everything is as even as possible. I'm leaving a border at the top and the bottom, trying to make those equal as well. Once you're happy with it, give it a little bit of a crease to make sure that they're going to fold well together, and then press that in place. When you go to fold it, it's going to feel a little bit tight, and that's because you have 2 layers of cardstock. What I like to do is I like to come over very carefully and just give it a little bit of a crunch and reinforce my score line. Now that that's been adhered, we're going to work on the tunnel. You're going to see that there's both the left and the right pieces, and the center comes forward to that mountain fold we talked about. You're going to work on one side at a time, and since I'm right-handed, I'm going to work on my left side. But before you do that, I want you to visually hold it over the card base, None of us cuts and scores perfectly. So now is the time to shave a little bit off of one side if you need to, if it doesn't fit perfectly. Once you're satisfied with it, we're going to flip it upside down and we're going to place liquid glue on one panel. Again, you're not going to cover up that crease line. With the liquid glue in place, I am looking to keep that narrow margin that I've designed for this card all the way symmetrical, the very best that I can. Before the glue dries, hold out the rest of the cardstock and just manipulate this to make sure that it's going to provide that border that you're looking for. We're going to bend back the right side and we're going to add liquid glue. Again, not going over the crease line to the right. You're going to lay the cardstock flat and you should be able to align this so that you've got a nice margin along the sides and the top. The center crease line here on the red cardstock should match that on the garden green cardstock. All you're going to want to do now is you're going to hold it up and the center should come and pop out and you're going to very gently squish the card. It's going to feel thick and that's because there's a lot of cardstock involved. Once you've done that, go ahead and let's open it up and we can decorate these inside panels. I'm using the Designer Series paper, the same package that these elements came from, and I've cut them to fit the side. As a reminder, you're going to find all the cutting dimensions and supplies inside that free project sheet. That's linked down in the video description for you below under the title. This piece now will adhere to the other side. We're going to come back and add some simple embellishments to this, but let's close this up and let's talk about the closure for this card. I've cut a piece of Designer Series paper from that exact same package that will go here on the front of the card base. Let's go ahead and let's flip that over. So pretty, isn't it? You almost hate to cover this up. But that's the beauty of the Stampin' Up! Products, is that color coordination and the fact that the Designer Series papers are double-sided. It's going to provide you with a theme on one side and a more generic pattern on the other side so that you can use them throughout the year. Before you joined me, I went ahead and I die cut another one of those same size squares, and I'll adhere this now to the front of the card base. I'm going to be using my silicone craft sheet for this next step because I want to create these leaves into a wreath. And these again are all part of the laser cut pieces. I'm going to begin by laying them out. And I'm going to create a circle. I find that laying 3 pieces out first works well, and they're going to be varying sizes here. I'm going to take this larger one, and I'm going to tuck it behind this one, and I'm going to move this one over to the top. I'll take a smaller one now, and I'll do the same thing here over on this side, but this time I'm going to put it over the top. Finally, I'll take one more here for the bottom. This one I'm going to tuck up underneath. Once you're happy with the shape of your wreath, you're probably like me and wondering, well, how are you going to get it to stay like that? I've got a great tip for you that uses press and seal. Head over to the kitchen and cut yourself a piece that's going to be about the size of the area you need to cover. You want to make sure that the sticky sides are to the back. You're going to work quickly because it's going to become staticky, and you're going to place it over the image on the silicone craft sheet. The silicone craft sheet is going to help keep the pieces from sliding like your regular work surface. Press the images into the press and seal. I'm going to flip the silicone craft sheet over and peel it off, and that's going to reveal the wreath. What we're going to do now is we're going to connect these areas with dimensionals before we release the press and seal. So you may need to use mini dimensionals depending on the area that you're covering, but it's very important that you overlap the pieces. Once you have the dimensionals in place, you're simply going to turn it over and you're very carefully going to release the press and seal. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool with the paper piercing tool attachment to remove the paper backings. Once the backings have been removed, you can go ahead and place your wreath in the center of the square. From the exact same package, I went ahead and I pulled out the bells. I'm going to flip this over because I'm going to elevate this as well, but it doesn't all need to be elevated. I'm just going to elevate the bottom portion of the bells here because the rest will actually fall on the wreath itself. Removing those paper backings, this now is going to be connected here to the bottom of my wreath. I'm going to bend this very slightly and I'll come back in there with a little bit of that liquid glue and place that down inside. I love the very narrow tip here. It allows me to get in those little tight spots very easily. When you go to close it, you're going to notice that the card is a little bit thick because of all the cardstock. Now you may choose to do a fancy closure, and that's where this comes into play. This is a 3/4 inch strip of the same garden green cardstock. I'm going to use my bone folder to very carefully and gently break down the fibers of the cardstock to create a belly band. I find that lightly curling the paper is going to keep it from cracking too much. I'm going to work the solid area of the belly band to the back of the card, and I'm going to work the raw ends to the front. It's very important that you don't make the belly band too tight, otherwise the receiver is not going to be able to take it off. So you're just going to want to leave a little bit of a gap there. Once you have it where you want it, you can go ahead and create some slight creases with your fingers on both ends. You're going to take this piece off. For this, I'm going to switch over to adhesive. I know these pieces are going to come together, so I'm going to open this up and I'm going to add a couple strips of adhesive here, and I'm going to add another strip to the top on this side. Coming back here to the card base, I'm going to rewrap it with that cardstock, which I know has been bent, and I'm going to create that closure, again, not making it too tight. This should easily slide, but I decided this is a great spot for us to put a greeting. I'm going to be using the traditional labels bundle, and I've already die cut one of these double banners from basic white cardstock. I'm going to be using real red ink for this to coordinate with our card, and I've got the greeting mounted here. Let's go ahead and let's ink that up, and that's going to get stamped right inside of here. I made the belly band 3/4 of an inch wide, specifically so this would sit nicely on top. I'm going to flip this upside down, and this time I'm going to use mini dimensionals because I want to make sure that I don't extend the dimensionals past the belly band. This time I'm making sure the dimensionals are primarily towards the center of the banner. I'm also adding some here to the outside banner tips, and then I'll remove the paper backings. This now is going to get attached to the belly band, so I'm going to center this over the middle of the wreath. You need to make sure that this continues to slide. If it doesn't, it's because the dimensionals are hanging off of the belly band. Now the last thing was to add a little bit of pizzazz to this holiday card. I'm using the traditional sparkling sequins, and unlike sequins, these are not faceted. They're nice and flat, which means no additional postage. I'm going to take one of the medium-sized ones, and I'm going to add that here near the bottom. I love these because they already have glue dots on the back. And I've placed another one here in the top corner outside of that square, and we'll give that a good push. But I want to carry that to the inside of the card, just to kind of spruce up this area just a little bit. This time I'm going to use one of the larger ones. I'm going to place that down here near the bottom right, and then I'm going to stagger the two smaller ones up here in the right-hand corner and give those a good push so the glue dots are in place. But there you go, perfect freestanding and a great tunnel card. And of course the belly band that's going to slide over the top of your card. Keep in mind, aside from a belly band, you can consider ribbon for a closure as well, or of course just leave it the way it is. Now let me share with you those other cards I created for you. This next one uses the Jolly Delivery Bundle, and it's quite abundant. It's going to create an adorable little gift card holder here, great for packaging or of course to hold a tag for your holiday packages, and really some fun whimsical images. And just like this designer series paper, although this one comes in 12 by 12, it also has laser cut pieces to work in conjunction with the stamped images. And here is the card that I created for you. Here on the front, I used the laser cut images along with the designer series paper in the package, the exact same sparkling sequence here. Added lots of shimmer for my Wink of Stella and create a little faux snowbank there. And then an embossing folder on the front to give this some texture. And when you open up this card, you're going to find that the inside creates a small scene. So I stamped the bear with the presents from the stamp set, used the coordinating designer series paper, carried over the snowbank theme from the front of the card, and placed it here on the inside. Stamped a small sentiment here, and then used the images. These were actually stamped and colored. I placed part of the snowbank on the inside of the die cut circle. This is also from Stylish Shapes. So unlike the square, this one is actually the circle here. I opted for another color inside that same package of sparkling sequins just to spruce up the inside top of this card as well, and just brought in a tree from another one of my die cuts. Let me share with you one more. This next one uses the Amber Autumn Bundle stamps and dies. Very simple designer series paper, which is going to allow you to play up those very bold and regal fall colors, which I used here. The shape here on the front of the card is carried over to the inside of the card in a different direction. The dies that I used here are called the branching out dies, and I love the staggering sizes once again. They're going to work great for lots and lots of cards. The Autumn Designer Series paper is beautiful for this, and I did use the Stampin' Blends alcohol-based markers to color my image. Now, you might recall me mentioning about the greeting here at the top. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually stamped it on the cardstock first, and it was crooked. So I thought, how can I fix this? So instead, I created a banner, and I stamped it in early espresso, which is going to be difficult to see here in the video because of the shadows from the lights. But you're going to need to be very, very careful when you do this because you need to make sure that the crease is going to fall between words or it's really going to break up the text itself. I was grateful I was able to save that mistake. I added some simple embellishments for the front for a very simple fall card. It's an amazing pop-up feature that I know whoever's going to receive it is going to be proud to display. And I hope that the project sheets that I provided below are going to really help inspire you. I cannot wait to see what you make. I'd love to know which one of those cards is your favorite. Do me a favor and leave me a comment below. If you're new to my channel, I would love to have you subscribe. And do me a favor, click that thumbs up button, which is a like here on YouTube. It helps me immensely. And if you love to stay inspired and be in the know about sales and promotions, make sure you go over to my website and you sign up for my free studio newsletter. Scroll all the way to the bottom and fill out that little form and we'll keep you in the know. Speaking of inspiration, let me tell you a little bit about Stamp Studio memberships. It doesn't matter what country you live in, and it doesn't matter what level of stamper you are. I've got tutorials just for you. There are 2 levels. Level 1 is $5 a month and includes multiple pictures, cutting dimensions, supplies, and step-by-step instructions for a project that I don't share anywhere else. Best of all, none of my projects in my memberships are watermarked, which means you are welcome to share them with whoever that you'd like. And if you're a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, that is especially helpful if you're teaching classes or clubs. But perhaps you'd like a little bit more, there is level 2. It includes everything in level 1 at $10 a month, plus a monthly fun fold card. And of course, you're going to get multiple pictures, cutting dimensions, supplies, and step-by-step instructions. You're going to be able to find all the information about my Stamp Studio memberships over on my website in the red menu bar titled Memberships. Click on one of these videos so I can keep you inspired. And thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.